So that's one of the symptoms that the person has a mental illness. Because
Yeah.
ordinarily, why would somebody want to kill
Yeah.
himself or herself? Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Ordinarily, why would you want to kill yourself? But because the person
Okay.
has a mental illness, the person is
Okay.
likely to think of suicide or have suicidal ideation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Living Beyond Limitations. So, October is Mental Health Month, and today we're going to be talking about mental health, mental disorders, and the main focus, depression. And we will be having this conversation with a mental health professional, one of Nigeria's finest clinical psychologists, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi, who happens to be my therapist and my mentor. Mrs. Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi is a seasoned clinical psychologist specialized in addressing and resolving psychological and emotional challenges within organizations, families, and individuals. She focuses on supporting adolescents and young adults in maintaining optimal mental health by equipping them with the necessary tools and resources for a fulfilling life. As the founder of the Parenting Support System and PSS Wellbeing Center, Oluwatoyin leads initiatives that aids families and individuals battling mental health issues in their recovery journeys. She's also the convener of the Smart Parenting Community Outreach, a non-profit organization dedicated to empowering parents in undeserved communities with effective parenting tools and resources. Oluwatoyin, with her husband, Taiwo Ogunkanmi, who founded the Glicken Youth Development Academy. This platform fosters the development of young adults into independent, well-balanced, and productive members of the society. In addition to her clinical and community work, Oluwatoyin is a best-selling author with 4 published books and numerous ebooks to her name. So let's welcome Mrs. Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. Hello, Mrs. Toyin. Welcome to Living Beyond Limitation. It's a delight
Hi.
having you here.
Hello, Daniela. How are you doing? Nice having me here.
My pleasure. Like, it's an honor having you here. Like, I'm so excited. You know, having my mentor in the building and my therapist. Yes. Wow. Yeah, it's so good to have you here. I don't get tired of learning from you. Still, it's a delight having you here. Having battled with depression, suicidal ideation, I've come to love anything mental health. Like, I can't stop learning about mental health, mental disorders, and all. I know a lot of people battle with their mental health, but because of the stigmatization around it, the misconception people have about mental health, a lot of people don't speak out. Just like me back then, I found it difficult to speak out. So I just want us to have this conversation. And who would I have this conversation with if not you, my therapist, that has helped me a whole lot. So we just talk about mental health and mental disorder and the main focus, depression. But first of all, I want you to tell us what mental health is and mental disorder as well.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. When we
Yeah.
talk about mental health, a lot of people don't really understand what mental health is. Like you said, there's a lot of stigmatization. The
Yeah.
fact that people don't understand what mental health is. When you hear the word mental health, they
Mm.
just they just think of the worst of the worst. But
Yeah.
really and truly, mental health is a state of well-being
Mm.
whereby an individual is able to realize all his abilities. An individual is able to cope with the stress of daily living. An
Mm.
individual is able to work productively and contribute to the community. Your mental health has to do with how you feel, how you
Mm.
think, and how you behave. Basically, that's what mental health is. Now,
mm,
when there's absence of these things, absence of you being able to think, feel, or act right, when you're not able to cope with daily stress, when you're not able to work or to read or to study productively, or when you're not able to contribute to your community, we'll
mm,
say that there is a mental illness or a mental illness are setting. We'll say the person has a mental disorder. And one of
mm.
the things about mental disorder or mental health is that it's on a spectrum. So it's
Okay,
range, there's a range, it's ranging from mild to severe to the extreme. So it's on a
okay.
spectrum.
Oh wow, okay. So because there are a lot of people struggling with depression, I know there are other forms of mental disorders, but our main focus today is depression. So what is depression?
Okay. Thank you so much. So I know that word depression has been thrown
Mm.
around like any small thing. Oh, I'm depressed. Or
I'm
any small
depressed.
thing, I'm depressed,
Exactly.
you know? But when for anybody to be diagnosed clinically depressed, the
Mm,
person should have gone through I'm going to list some symptoms. So this person should have had at least 5 or 6 of these symptoms for 2 weeks consecutively. For
okay.
2 weeks consecutively. So depression is a major, so someone is said to be clinically depressed
Mm,
when the person has serious issues with the way the person feels. So if the person has persistent feeling of sadness, the person
okay.
feels hopeless, the person
Mm,
has lack of interest or pleasure in daily activities.
yeah.
And these things affect the way the person feels, things, or the way the person handles day-to-day activities. Would say the person is clinically depressed if it has gone on for minimum of 2 weeks, at least
Okay.
2 weeks consecutively.
Okay. So like I mentioned earlier, because of the stigmatization around depression, mental health issues, people find it difficult to speak out. I know a lot of people are not aware when somebody's battling with depression. So, using myself as an example, if I don't speak out, nobody would know I am depressed. Like when it was so intense, when I became a visually impaired person, I didn't speak out. My husband didn't know. Nobody knew about it until it became worse. I was suicidal and all. And other few times when I've also had some relapse, nobody would know except I speak out. Yeah. So how do people become more aware that somebody is battling with depression? What are the main symptoms to look out for us to be able
Okay.
to know that this person is depressed?
Okay, so we have emotional symptoms, we have
Okay.
physical symptoms, we have cognitive symptoms, we have behavioral symptoms. So I'm just going to
Okay.
list some of the symptoms and
Okay.
I might discuss them along the way. So under emotional symptoms, we have things like persistent sadness, feeling of
Mm.
emptiness, feeling of
Mm.
hopelessness. I had a session with
Yeah,
someone this morning, and the person said, I just feel as if I'm drowning in a well, that feeling of
exactly.
hopelessness,
I've been there.
emptiness. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Mm.
some people, there are also lots of interest or pleasure in
Mm.
things they used to find enjoyable, things they used to love doing. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, you just don't find pleasure in those things. Then feeling of worthlessness, feeling as if they're not worth anything, as if their job, being a wife, being a husband, everything is just not worth anything.
Mm.
Then for some people, also feeling of guilt. They're just feeling guilty. Oh, guilty because they are alive, or guilty because things are going on well. No, they're just feeling guilty. For some people, they start feeling irritable, frustration over little things. Their
Mm.
temper becomes very short. For some other people, the thought of suicide, dying just becomes
Mm.
a lot on their mind.
Mm.
So those are for the emotional symptoms. Now, for the physical symptoms, the person feels tired.
Mm.
The person feels tired. The person has lots of tired, low energy. The person is not able to sleep.
Mm.
Either the person is sleeping too much, or the person is not
Mm.
even sleeping at all, insomnia, or for
Yeah.
some people, there's the change in their appetite is that they stop eating or they tend to eat a lot.
Okay.
Then also slow movement, all of a sudden they just begin
Oh my
to
God.
act as
Really?
if they're in slow. The things they used to do, they used to talk,
Yeah,
people used
yeah,
to hear
yeah.
them talk excited, all of their speech becomes so slow, their thinking becomes slow. For some other people, they start to cry a lot, they
Mm.
just cry from. I remember there was a patient I had, as she's talking, tears are just coming down. Like, why are you crying? She goes, I don't know why I'm
I
crying.
don't know.
Person just
Wow.
starts crying and all that. Then for some people, they find it difficult to think. They're not able to think and make right decisions. For some, they forget
Decisions,
things
yeah.
that they begin to forget things.
Mm.
Some have negative thoughts, best they look at life as a what's there in life self.
Yeah,
There's nothing
exactly.
good about they just have this
Mm.
pessimistic outlook to life, unable to focus, and they just have this feeling of as if they're just floating. Life is not enjoyable. They just feel
Mm.
that they're just there, but they're not there. Now, for
Yeah.
behavioral symptoms,
Mm.
they tend to withdraw from to society or from family members. Their friends just notice that they're always isolating themselves, keeping to themselves in the room. They don't come out to chat again. They don't even go out visiting friends again. Then they neglect their appearance. They just notice that personal habits, grooming.
Mm.
They just neglect themselves and all that. But do you notice that there's a change in this person? They'll be,
Mm.
you notice the change. That's the thing you need
Mm.
to know about depression. You notice the change. Could be
Okay.
behavioral changes, cognitive changes, physical changes, or emotional changes. These are symptoms that there is something wrong
Mm.
with the person.
Wow. So these are symptoms that we have to look out for us to know that this person is depressed. Okay. I think I had like 90% of those symptoms: suicidal ideation, emptiness, feeling worthless, and a whole lot of that. So what is the cause? What can you say is the cause of depression? So for me,
Hmm.
my own case, it was because I became a visually impaired person. I lost my sight. So what are other causes of depression?
Okay, so depression, when you talk about depression is caused by so many things and so little
Mm.
things. So
Okay.
the first thing we need to look at is the biological effect.
Okay.
How biology. So when I talk about biology, I mean in terms of genetics, right?
Genetics. Yeah.
In terms of genetics, how is the person's family history? Is there
Okay.
is there an history of mental illness in the person's
Okay.
home?
Okay.
That's the number one. So it's genetic. For some people, maybe the parents or the grandparents, or I remember there was a family that I worked with, I worked with the older one, then the younger one too came. I was like, what's happening here? So by the time we did our initial assessment, we asked questions, we found out that the grandparents, one of them had it. Do you understand? So
Yeah.
that's the first. So mental health
Wow.
issue, any form
Genetics.
of mental health can be caused or by genetics. Now, the
Mm.
second area is when it comes to it's under biology again, when it has to do with the hormones in the brain. So there are some hormones in
Wow.
the brain. Yeah. Once so there's like serotonin, hormones that makes us feel good. When there's a change in the hormones in the brain, this can cause a mental health issue. So for
Mm.
some, for depression, when there's a low level of serotonin, it can
Mm.
cause now for some other people, hormonal changes for some people. So the first is genetics. The second is when there's a change in the chemicals in the
Change.
brain,
Yeah.
the yeah,
Brain. Yeah.
that's the neurotransmitters when they're imbalanced, the neurotransmitters. Then we also have hormonal changes for some women during pregnancy. I'd seen a woman that was pregnant, and because of the pregnancy, the hormonal imbalance caused her to fall into
Fall
depression.
into
Also,
depression. No.
for some people postpartum, after they've had the
Mm.
child,
Mm.
after they've had the child, they can have depression. That's what we call postpartum
Postpartum depression.
depression.
Yeah.
Yes. Then for some other people, maybe due to their thyroids, they have problems with their thyroid glands. If they have excessive, this can also
Mm.
trigger depression. So that's under
Okay.
biology. Now, under psychological factors, the person personality, there's some personality that
Are
they're prone
predisposed.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone that is always pessimistic, someone that is, the melancholic type of person, you
Mm.
know, these people are prone to depression.
Depression.
Also, we have childhood trauma. I remember seeing a patient that had gone through several abuse while growing up,
Mm.
sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect. So there's something called adverse childhood experiences. So this theory states that individuals who have gone through at least three of these traumatic experiences before the age of 18, there is a
Mm.
likelihood of them having a mental health issue, a mental
Depression.
disorder.
Others.
And what are
Wow.
these experiences? Maybe the person has been physically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused. The person was raised in a home where there was domestic violence. The person is raised in a separated home, in a home where the parents are
Mm.
separated. The person was lived in a home where the the son abusing drugs.
Mm.
The person has lived in a home whereby someone is mentally ill, or the person has lived in a home whereby someone has gone to prison. Maybe either of the
Wow.
parents has gone to prison.
Mm.
At least three of this person
Okay.
is likely is a risk factor for depression in adulthood. So those are two factors. Then the third factor is environmental and social factors. Maybe someone has gone through a stressful life experience. Maybe
Mm.
this person has lost a loved one, divorce, job, financial difficulties. Something drastic has happened to the person. So for you was
Disability. Yeah.
because you lost your eyesight.
Yeah.
That was why you went into depression
Depression.
because you lost the full function of your eyesight. That's why you went into depression, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
For some other people, it could be chronic illness. I remember when I was working at the Gariki General Hospital. There was a particular patient I went to see that I was called to see, and the patient was actually battling with chronic kidney disease. The person had this kidney disease for a long time,
Um,
and that's contributed to the person's depression. Because so for the fact that the person just couldn't
mm.
even believe that. So maybe some person was used to be very healthy, used to be very bubbly. All of a
Oh
sudden, the person was
yeah.
always
So
going to
it's similar to becoming a person with
sorry?
disability, you know. Well, I think it's similar to becoming a person with disability. So chronic illness, disability, they all fall
Yes,
into, yeah.
yes. That made the person fall into depression. Then
Yeah.
also substance abuse. We have people that indulge in different substances, either alcohol,
Mm.
this can cause depression.
Wow. Well, I
Yeah.
thought the reverse was the case in this one, that depression would make you fall into substance abuse.
So
So,
it's a two-way thing. It's a two-way thing for some
okay,
people. For some
okay,
people, because they're feeling depressed, they're looking for things to bring them out of the depression. They started
mm,
using substances. Now, for
okay,
some other people, the substances they were taking
mm,
caused depression in them.
wow,
Now, for some other people, it's not even just depression, it can cause psychosis and all that in them.
mm,
Yeah. So
wow.
these
I'm
are
just
like
enjoying
four
this.
I think four factors that can cause depression: biological
Okay,
factor, psychological factor, social and
Social
environmental
and
factor,
environmental factor.
and substance use.
Wow. So mine falls into environmental and social factor. I see. And I bet a lot of people didn't know that biological factor could also cause depression. We're learning a lot. Okay. So when you were talking about the symptoms, you spoke about suicidal ideation and this feeling of emptiness, not being
Yeah.
fulfilled and all. So is depression the main cause of suicide when you have
It's not
suicidal
just
ideation,
depression or any
or there are
mental
other
illness.
things? Okay.
Yes, any mental illness can cause. So that's one of the symptoms that the person has a mental illness. Because
Mm,
ordinarily, why would somebody want to kill
yeah.
himself or herself? Do you understand?
Okay. Yeah.
Ordinarily, why would you want to kill yourself? But because the person
Okay.
has a mental illness, the person is
Okay.
likely to think of suicide or have suicidal ideation.
Okay. So the second thing I mentioned was that feeling of emptiness, unfulfillment, and all. So let me take you back to when I met you last year. That was in the month of October, 1 year ago precisely, a month before I started my podcast. I was battling with depression again. Then I just left my teens church for like a year because I put to bed. So I started feeling this emptiness, unfulfillment, and all. So I went to meet the therapist that was working on me, and I met him instead. So I told you how I was feeling, depression and all. And you didn't even know I had impaired vision. And you said, why? And I told you, and you said, there is more to life than having impaired vision. So you talked about purpose, having a sense of purpose. And you also said, I had a good voice for podcast. Wouldn't I consider podcast? I was like, wow. I was also considering starting one next month, but I was still figuring the right way to go about it. So I'm just like, what's the relationship between depression and purpose? Having a sense of purpose.
So one of the things when it comes to therapy, and that's why therapy is very, very important. One of the things
Mm,
we do in therapy is to help you to see life, to help you to understand that there's more to life than wanting
mm,
to kill yourself. And
exactly.
that more to life is you finding purpose, you having a sense of something you're
Meaning,
working towards.
yeah,
Do you understand?
yeah,
Having a
direction, yeah.
purpose like, oh, I'm alive because of XYZ. I need to achieve this. I need to do that. So it's important that we can tie a sense of purpose to either our goals, um, helping in the community, you
Mm,
know, having an existential living, knowing that you're living for something, you're existing for
exactly.
something. You're not just here to zuzu, like one
Mm.
of my mentors would say. Why are you zuzuing? You're
Ah,
not just here to zuzu, but you're here for a reason and for a purpose on earth. And
mm,
when you have this feeling, when you know that, oh,
mm,
I'm living because I want to achieve XYZ. I'm living because I have a sense of direction. I have meaning in my life. It takes away
um,
those thoughts of hopelessness, those thoughts of, not being connected or not being um wanting to isolate yourself or wanting to disconnect from life.
um,
But when you know that, oh, I am living for a purpose, I have a reason for still existing, there's so much God has put in me. I need to pour it out in other people. It also helps you on the path of recovery.
mm,
So
okay.
having purpose is a protective factor when it comes to mental illness. So there are different protective factors. Number one is family. Having a family, having
Mm,
loving people around you is a protective factor.
um,
Having a source of income, job that you're doing, there's something you're doing every day.
mm,
Having a sense of purpose, it's
yeah,
another protective factor.
mm,
It gives you that resilience, that hope that, yeah, you can keep
Exactly.
going.
Yeah.
So
Of
it's a
course.
protective factor.
I see. So having a sense of purpose serves as a protective factor for depression.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. I've come to realize that now that I have a sense of purpose, I know I have a lot of things I'm looking forward to, this podcast, working with teenagers, have a sense of direction. I mean, it kind of helps me with depression. Yeah, I can feel sad, but it's not so intense like the way it used to be when I became a visually impaired person and a few years ago, even last year when I was still feeling this unfulfillment. So, for someone that is already battling with depression, what are the coping mechanisms?
Okay. Thank you so much for this question. So, like I said, I said, first thing first, when it comes to someone battling with depression, you person needs to know that you can't do it alone. You need help. And
Yeah.
that's why the person needs to see a professional, a
Okay.
psychologist or psychiatrist. A professional is very important.
Mm,
However, while seeing this professionals, there are certain things you can do that would help you to manage the symptoms and also improve your mental well-being. And
okay.
what are these things? Like I said, physical exercise. Remember when I spoke about the
Yeah.
causes, I said biological factors that
Factors. Yeah.
maybe when there's certain hormones that are not
Hormones. Yeah.
imbalanced. Yeah.
Mm,
So one of the things you can do apart from medication is you exercising. Regular exercise, very important because this
okay.
boosts
Mm,
certain hormones, your endorphins, your feel good hormones in the body,
mm,
feel good chemicals in the body, taking a
okay.
walk, jogging, swimming,
Mm,
it boosts these feel good hormones in the body and
okay.
also
I
reduces
mean,
depression. Then, when you exercise, what happens? Your energy level increases, right? And also improves your sleep. Then, another thing we can
okay.
do as coping mechanism is to ensure we sleep well. And that's where we talk about sleep hygiene,
Okay.
having very good sleep habits, going to bed at a particular time, waking up at the same time. This will improve your mood and also improve your energy level. Then, before you go to bed, you need to avoid at least 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. Avoid watching or being on your social media or being on your phone. You
Mm,
need to prepare your home environment. Then
okay.
having a daily routine, structured life, very, very important. Having a structured life, very important. Then remember one of the protective factors I said, talking to people, having friends around
People's,
you
yeah,
is
supportive
also a
network. Yeah.
coping mechanism. So having social support, having people around with you, speaking
Mm,
with your loved ones, speaking with friends, you
mhm,
join a support group. One of the things we do in my organization is called All About You, a better you, it's a support group for women where the
mm,
women that are battling with either
mm,
anxiety or depression, where they can
mm,
come together and give themselves support. These are part of things you can do. Just there are quite a lot, but these are just a
okay.
few things you can do. I have a book coming out very soon. It's simple, mental health. It's on mental health basically. So when the book comes, I'll let you know. Maybe you can also tell
Okay.
your audience to buy. It's simply on
Okay.
mental health, how you can protect
Mm,
yourself as
okay.
a family person and as a mother, or as a father, as a parent, how you can protect your mental health so that you can also help your children in living well.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So you mentioned exercise. So I'm like, for a person living with disability that can engage in some exercise because of their situation, what would you advise they do to cope with depression?
you. Exercise within limitations, for people living with disabilities, what coping mechanism can you do? Identify a hobby that you can do within your limits, number one. Number two, your faith and spirituality is very important. One of the things we preach when it comes to mental health is spirituality. And
Mm,
spirituality is your relationship with God. This has nothing to do with
exactly.
your religion. This has nothing to do with your denomination. This is simply your personal relationship with God, because
Mm,
it gives you a sense of purpose, it gives you peace, and it gives you connection, irrespective
yeah,
of you being having disability, living with disability, or you not living with disability. Your faith is very important. So
yeah,
hobby, faith, physical exercises, very important. Having a structured life, very important.
mm,
Then your support structure, very,
mm,
very important. The
exactly,
people you have around you. Then
exactly.
also therapy. Therapy is very important. So, like, therapy really helped you, true of us.
100%.
100. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of therapy, that's my next question. There's this misconception people have about going for therapy and depression. Also, some people, because of their faith, they wouldn't go for therapy. Yeah. So, what misconception about therapy and depression would you like to dispel?
Okay. Before I talk about it, I want you to tell us your experience about therapy before I talk about it. Because you've gone for therapy
Okay.
and you've seen the benefits of therapy. So you tell us, what do you think about therapy?
Oh my God. Like, I can't overemphasize the importance of therapy. I would recommend therapy anytime, any day. So, what has therapy done for me? Wow. Like I said, I didn't used to talk to people about things. So, having to talk to a therapist, without being judged. Now I can talk to a few persons about how I'm feeling. Therapy has helped me to connect more with my family and friends. It has helped me with my self esteem, with my thoughts, distorted thoughts, yeah, negative self thoughts, and all. Also, my spirituality as well. Like, we also talk about that in therapy. It has helped me build my faith. It's just so peaceful having somebody listening to you without judging you. A lot of people are so judgmental. So, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. So the first thing about therapy is that
Mm,
you are having someone that's going to listen to you without judgment,
yeah.
non-judgmental, free, not judgmental space to talk about your problem. I remember there was a particular person I was working with, and the person was like, I don't like talking to people. And me coming to talk here feels strange to me, yet
Mm,
it's helping me.
yeah.
For some people, they're like, why would I have to go and talk to a third party or a
Mm,
stranger about what is happening to me? I feel it's safer because the person does not know you, person doesn't have any relationship with
yeah.
you. You
Yeah.
just, and because there's a confidentiality clause, the person cannot talk about you to another person. The person cannot mention your name and say, oh, XYZ came for therapy. Oh, yeah, no, no,
Mm,
no. So that it's a free zone, it's a free, non-judgmental zone where you can
yeah.
express yourself. And because the therapist has been trained
Mm,
to listen, has been trained to work with you, to work with you in developing coping mechanism and strategy that fits your own situation. Because what will fit you might not fit A or B or C. So it's
yeah.
individualized, and that's why one of the things I do is individualized treatment plan. Each person has his own treatment plan based on where the person is coming from. Then another thing about therapy is that your therapist will help you challenge those negative thought patterns,
Yeah.
those ways of thinking that is pulling you down. Your therapy will challenge those um thought pattern Also, when it comes to your relationship with your family members, because you've not been able to learn how to communicate effectively, your therapist
Mm,
will teach you, give you skills on how to communicate effectively and assertively with your family members. And this will help you to be able to express yourself better, and would also help them to know how you feel when things are happening. And another thing your therapist can work with you on is your self-esteem and see you. Yes, you're
yeah.
radiating. I am each time I watch your video, I'm always
Oh my God.
excited because I remember the person I met
Mm,
a year ago, last year October. So I met you last year October and see the
yeah.
tremendous improvement, the wonderful things you've been doing in the last
Yeah.
1 year,
Yes.
and see from the person I met last year to the person I'm seeing today. So therapy is very, very important. It helps boost your self-esteem, gives you a sense of self-worth, give you self-confidence. It's a free space for you to talk. You're just talking to someone that
Exactly.
has been trained
Mm,
to listen to you without judgment. Also,
yeah.
therapy helps you in terms of improving your relationship with your loved ones. And also, therapy can also help you get to the root cause of what is happening to you.
Yes.
So that's why
Exactly.
therapy is important.
Yeah. Exactly. It will help you get to the root cause of that. Like I said, I would recommend therapy any day, anytime. So, for depression, misconception about depression, you would like to dispel.
So part of the misconception about depression is that some people will say, come on, snap out of it. You can get out of it like that. You can't depression. So, like I said, for someone to be diagnosed, then for someone to be said to have assessed, if you've done to be done the assessment and all that, and it seems that you have clinical depression, you can't snap out of it like that. And that's why you
Um,
need therapy, and you also need some medication for those that are chronically depressed, they will
uh,
need
uh,
medication also with therapy.
uh,
So misconception, the person is not lazy. The
uh,
person is not trying to seek attention. The person cannot snap out of it just like that.
yeah.
The person is actually sick. And it's the same way you look at someone that has a physical illness, and you have compassion on the person and you have empathy on the person. It's the same way we need to have compassion and empathy on people who are battling with mental health issues.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you very much for this wonderful session and conversation. Oh,
Thank you
wow.
so much.
I must say, I've really learned a lot, and my audience will agree with me that they learned a lot as well. Thank you. Thank you. I've got love for you. And like I said, I can't stop learning from you. So, guys, you can see I am doing very well because I have my therapist, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. So, if you want to reach out to her, you can connect with her via our social media platforms. So, Mrs. Toyin, where can we connect with you?
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. On Facebook, I'm Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. My website, www.oluwatoyinogunkanmi.com. I have a website. Then on LinkedIn, Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. Then what else? So basically, Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi everywhere.
Thank you so much once again for being here.
Thank you so much for having
Okay.
me.
Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned a lot from one of Nigeria's finest psychologists, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Ogunkanmi. Do take care of your mental health. Bye for now. Until next time.